Welcome back, everybody. This is Wally the Space Cowboy Variety Show. We're back at it again with spoilers, bruh. And my co-host today is Zach from BCBWNEWS. At the beginning of the episode, there's no Pietro around, and the boys are kind of sitting in the living room and they're like playing a game. It looks like they got Wii controllers, and the controllers start reverting to like a GameCube controller, then like I think eventually like Uno cards. And like they obviously don't know what's going on, so they go up to see Wanda about it, and she's like, I don't really know what's going on, whatever. I'm just done with dealing with any problems today. I want to be by myself. And when she gets out of the bed, or she's still in her Halloween costume, which is her comic book costume. After that, we get hit with a intro sequence, and it's very Office-esque, like in the tune that's playing everything. And then we're getting flashes of a bunch of things around town that just say Wanda on it, and nothing actually says Vision until at the very end when it's like Wanda, and then like Vision kind of scoots in from the side.
I've been kind of digging the intros, where it's like Dick Van Dyke in the first one, and then it goes to like what was it, like Genie in a Bottle, or the other like
I Dream of Genie,
yeah,
Bewitched.
And so this one being The Office was kind of a nice touch for the more modern early mid 2000s, like mid to late 2000s kind of era of TV shows. I think you definitely get the sense that I mean she's obviously lost it the entire time, but it's more she's no longer in control. She's no longer wanting to keep appearances, I guess, as it goes on. So yeah, noticing that like Vision's just kind of the afterthought feels like it's a nod to that.
So like when Vision kind of pops in at the end of that, and like you said, it's just like kind of like an afterthought type deal. There is a the boys are asking where Vision is at, and Wanda replies just like, well, if he doesn't want to be here, there's nothing I can do about it. And I don't know if that's one of those double meaning things like I've talked about with my other guests on previous episodes, where she says that, and she's obviously lying to the boys,
right?
Because like she very much can kind of control most of the things that are going around in the town.
I think again, to kind of harken back to just the intro plus her not controlling everything. It's just, I think it's more of it's partly the fact that she's no longer able to control everything, but either she's more in a depressive state because she knows what she's doing isn't really right, and she's conflicted with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because in the previous episode, she had, when she, she takes the body of Vision, like she had a clear goal as to what she's doing, and it was more direct. But now she's had more time to kind of mull everything over.
Mm-hmm.
She's, maybe doesn't want to face the fact that what she's doing is terrible, which gets paid off later on in the episode. But so again, which we'll hit on with other things. The theme of the episode is she's realizing what she's kind of doing.
Mm-hmm. Kind of giving him, I guess, more. Yeah, maybe she's giving him more leeway to just like, I recognize what I'm doing is probably wrong, so we're gonna kind of just maybe let him do whatever. Whenever she's just trying to just chill out, it's like she's very stressed in this episode, doesn't really want to do a whole lot about anything. And Agnes kind of just like pops up and is like, hey, you want me to take the boys? And she's like, yeah, get them out of my face. And then like after that, like she's just like around the house, like trying to eat cereal and stuff, and like the furniture and stuff is changing, and she's not it doesn't seem like she's understand what's going on.
She doesn't seem to know what's going on, but at the same time, she, like, when the milk was changing right in front of her, she was just like, all right, whatever, fuck it, vitamin D milk, almond milk, whatever the fuck it is, sure.
Yeah. So after that, we get to meet back up with Monica and Jimmy Woo, and they're going to meet their contact, and she meets up with Major Goodner, and then it's definitely not who everybody wanted it to be, because, you know, when she's like, yeah, I got this dorky science friend or whatever that, you know, I want to meet up. I'm pretty sure everybody and their mom wanted it to be Reed Richards. It seems like everybody kind of just wanted like some more Fantastic Four tie-ins, and we just kind of got this. I don't think Major Goodner's anybody relevant in the comics. I think it's just kind of like a throwaway character. It's just like, oh, here's our plot device that helps us, you know, get from point A to point B. And whenever she meets with Major Goodner, they pull out the Land Rover that was like made to like Darcy's specs, I guess, which is considerably pretty fast. Like there wasn't a whole lot of
it was literally like what, just one episode that she mentioned it. So like, hey, if we, you know, theoretically had this shit in a vehicle of some sort, it might work.
Yeah.
Just like, and then, oh yeah, no, totally made, completely fleshed out, like, you know, looks like professionally made and shit, not like kind of strung together. And I was just like, okay. I mean, we're already in a show of disbelief, so all right, it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the least, I guess, fantastical element of this.
Right.
So after that, it kind of cuts to Vision and Darcy at the circus. Like, Vision just happened to be, like, in that area. And then last we saw Darcy, she was chained to like, a vehicle. And so whenever the hex goes over her, it changes everything into, like, a circus. And she's like this, she's an escape artist. Vision kind of recognizes her outside the hex, because she was the only one who's like, hey, go help this guy. And everybody else is like, nah, son, peace. And like dipped. And so he goes and he does like the Jedi mind trick that he did with like Norm and like Agnes. So they escape in like this funnel cake truck that they stole to get away from the circus so they can go talk. And after that, it jumps back to Wanda back at home. And furniture's still changing around the house, and like the stork pops back up that some people have thought was like Mephisto at some point in time. And then like the stork just like leaves. While she's just chilling in the house and the furniture is changing, she has like a little office-esque like interview with an unknown person behind the camera. Like, we're not exactly sure who it is at the time. And Wanda vents that she doesn't understand why everything is being weird and the furniture is changing. And then you hear like the interviewer ask, it's like, so do you think this is what you deserve? And and previous episodes we've talked about how most of this is dealing with Wanda's psychological state throughout, you know, the series. So we're unsure if it's like somebody that Wanda's controlling to kind of vent to, like, you know, with Pietro.
I mean, it definitely 100% comes across that way. It's just her way of, you know, dealing with her own shit.
So next we cut to a commercial for like a Nexus antidepressant. And like there's little things in the commercial where it says like anchors you to your reality or another of your choice, basically. And I thought that was super interesting.
This was a nice fun commercial, especially with the side effects that come with it.
Oh yeah, feeling your feelings, confronting your truth, seizing your destiny.
More depression.
Yeah, more depression. It's funny how the side effects are always worse than like what it's curing.
Right. But I don't know if you, I mean, I'm sure you noticed, but it's like, so during the commercial, especially in that intro part where it's talking about how this Nexus pill can help you anchor to your reality or another of your choice, and she walks over, lays into a bed, and then as it's talking about another choice, she like walks from the bed facing up, like instead of like she's walking on the wall. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, just from a different like perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a little neat little thing.
And it's also interesting because like they name it Nexus, and that also has like a tie-in to Man-Thing, because it's like I believe that's just like a point in like it's like alternate reality stuff where like dimension changing, like where that Man-Thing kind of protects. Also at the end of the commercial there's like a little more like subtext on there that's like, don't take unless your doctor's cleared you to move on with your life. So clearly it feels like a lot of these like commercials feel like something to do with like how like Wanda is feeling, like with the Lagos paper towels. It's like it's referencing a point in her time where like she felt guilty. So she's not exactly ready to like leave the hex at this point in time. So that's what this I feel like this commercial kind of like represents in a way, at least that last part.
Yeah.
It cuts to the boys at Agnes's place afterwards, and Wiccan kind of mentions to Agnes that it's like quiet in her house and that like she's quiet, and then she makes like a kind of like goofy like look at the camera because like she's not exactly sure. I don't know if that's because she realizes that, you know, that's not a good thing, that like he might kind of know that, you know, as we find out later in the episode, you know, it's like we definitely find out that Agnes is up to some shenanigans.
Right. And I mean, she's one of the only characters up until this point that you assume is being controlled, but she has her own like scenes.
Yeah, so like
I
she's
think everybody else is partnered with either Vision or Wanda, but she's the only one that seems to have her own scenes, which seems important. As we find out.
And she refers to like Wanda, kind of like Wanda is a director of some sorts, and she's not exactly playing a role like the rest of everybody else. After Agnes kind of shoots the camera like a look, there's like a cut to like her having an interview, kind of like The Office style, like how Wanda had one. And she just mentions that she's like, "Oh, what am I supposed to tell the kid, that her mom's crazy?" You know,
right?
And then
for Cocoa Puffs,
yeah. And she mentions her husband Ralph again. Where is Ralph? We have not seen him this entire series. Where is he at? We never see him. It's always just Agnes. So after that, it cuts to Monica going to attempt to enter the hex in the Land Rover. And she gets in her spacesuit, hops in the rover, and she's trying to like drive it through the hex. And the hex is like resisting it. And it eventually just kind of starts to take it in slowly, and it starts to transmute the rover into like a truck in that time period, I guess, as opposed to like something like, you know, space age like we got now.
Wanda was able to, you know, like her powers that I heard of in the comics, where she can shape reality however she fucking wants. You'd think this metals would just not have any effect anyway, because she could just rearrange like we see. It goes out to where it transforms into a halfway into a truck before it shoots it out. And then, of course, Monica's like, "Well, fuck it, I'm gonna go in anyway."
Yeah, she like shoots Jimmy Woo like a look, and Jimmy's like, "No, goddamn it!" And like, so she just like dips into the hex anyways. And there's some interesting things that happens in there. Like, one, it didn't necessarily like reject Monica like it did the truck. Like the truck, it just like spit out. And Monica, it didn't seem like it took a whole lot to get her through. And I'm assuming maybe it's because at some point, like on some level, because she was already in there and it's mutated her enough, like her blood enough when they did the analysis in like the previous episodes, maybe it made it easier for her to make it through. And then also when she's going through the hex, you see like kind of like a display of like all the different like costumes she's wore so far in the show. And she starts hearing different voices, and some of the voices are from her mom Maria and Nick Fury, and Maria was in Captain Marvel. And so in some of the whispers, you know, that she's hearing while she's going through the hex is Monica as a child talking to Maria, and Monica's like, "Hey, I could just, you know, meet you halfway or whatever in space." And Maria's like, "No, you can't come up here." And Nick Fury's like, "Yeah, you can't go up unless you start, you know, glowing like your Aunt Carol or whatever." And so I thought that was super interesting, because I wonder if that's like kind of alluding to like the beginning of Sword, because Sword is supposed to be like protecting Earth, or threats coming to Earth from space, is what Sword is designed to do.
Huh, okay.
So, and then also while she's going through the hex, like, we see her eye color change to like a blue or a green. And so we can only assume as much that her going through the hex again has mutated her further. And then when she pops out on the other side, her spacesuit is still intact. She's still wearing the spacesuit. It didn't change and transmute like everything else that has gone in and out of the hex. And then she also is it seems like she's able to read like electromagnetic like emissions from like the power lines and stuff around her from when she's looking around. So we can pretty much like assume at this point is like she's probably becoming more and more like Photon, who's another character in the comics, also known as like Spectrum. And
Okay.
yeah, I think at one point she has something to do with Carol Danvers and like Captain Marvel. So after that scene where she like pops out of the hex and takes off, we're back to Vision and Darcy and the funnel cake truck, and they're driving around, and Darcy's kind of filling Vision in on what's happening to him like before the hex. It's like, hey, you used to be an Avenger, Thanos came, you died, and some basically the plot of Endgame is what she's filling him in on. And then like they're hitting like every red light, and like Darcy's like, hey, this is weird, we keep hitting all these red lights on the way home. And Vision thinks that Wanda's making it hard for him to make it home, and we're seeing like construction workers like clog up the road, children, all the red lights and stuff. And he like shoots like a Jim look at the camera, like and right after the kids have just been like mysteriously gone, like
Right.
like most of the series, the first time we see him is during the Halloween episode. And yeah, especially like they're out in the boonies area of like the where the hex is at, right? So there's
like so I mean, because like the scene is just like it's just empty fields for like left and right and in front. Usually, pretty much, it's like if you back asswards area of Oklahoma, come across the crossroads, and there's just fields everywhere. It's like that, and then just randomly these construction workers show up, and they don't do anything.
And it's like 50 kids.
Working on anything. They're just, and then 50 kids just show up out of nowhere from the left side, like when there's no school for like 10 miles or something like that. Just like crosswalk. I'm just like, I mean, obviously it's well, Wanda and or maybe somebody else doing it, but.
Mm-hmm. And then like we also get to see Darcy refer to the show as WandaVision for the first time, which I thought was super interesting.
Makes sense. I mean, I mean, especially with this episode where it's a lot more meta, and like The Office with the and all that. It's like, calling back to, one. I mean, what was the episode previous where they're watching through, the old TV box that they randomly had, or got or whatever. Again, just being meta with it.
After our little jaunt with Vision and Darcy, Monica shows up at Wanda's house, and Wanda's like in her kitchen, and it looks like she's taking some pills, but you can't really see the label. Is it possibly like Nexus?
So I think it's definitely the case is that she's essentially taking her own medicine. Because like some people will they'll give advice but never follow it. Maybe it's kind of a visual representation that she's starting to try and follow her own advice.
Yeah,
like,
okay.
Because with the commercial, it's talking about trying to relieve depression, and so maybe it's just that visual representation that she's finally taking her own advice rather than just making others do what she wants, follow it or whatever.
And then so like Monica is trying to tell Wanda that like what's going on outside with like Director Haywood, and it's like, hey, they're trying to make you this bad guy, out to be this bad guy, and they don't want you doing what you're doing right now. There's all these people, and what you're doing is kind of bad, but I don't think you're necessarily a bad person. I want to try and help you out. And Wanda's just like not having it. And then so she and Monica head outside, and they argue.
You get to see a little bit of Monica's powers too.
Yeah, because whenever Wanda kind of lifts her up in the air and then like throws her down on the ground, like you kind of see some like blue rings that kind of seem to be like absorbing some of the shock from being slammed on the ground.
Right.
Something else that was like really interesting to me, because like for most of the series, Wanda has spent most of the series trying to like hide her powers and to have Vision have his like his human face on. And she's becoming more bold in her use of powers, like slinging Pietro, and then next thing you know, she's out like trying to toss Monica around in her front yard, and all the neighbors are like stopping. Like the mailman was like stopped to watch, and then whenever like Agnes comes to bail Wanda out, and everything like just kind of chills out, and then they leave. Like the mailman's just like, And it just like walks off. Yeah.
It's like every other day. What up?
Yeah,
It's
basically.
like, okay.
Oh, but also something else that I thought was really interesting while they were arguing was Monica's like, hey, you know, don't be this villain that Director Haywood's trying to make you out to be. And Wanda's like, well, maybe I am. It's like maybe her coming to like this realization that, you know, that what she is doing is wrong.
Right. Because, you know, like I was saying earlier, it's again, she is thinking that she is already the evil person. Because, I mean, she's already, back in the second Avengers, she was doing the bidding of Ultron. And so she already has a past of doing, you know, not great or evil things. Plus, you know, they bring up at one point, I think it was episode 6 or something, where they brought up the incident that caused the Accords or whatever, where she blew up
Lagos.
somebody. Yeah. So, I mean, she's, you know, had those doubts for, you know, throughout all the movies, and so it definitely makes sense that she still has that thought process. Like, she never really felt maybe part of Avengers or was ever really part of the good guys. So it completely makes sense that she would still have that and be dealing with it. For sure.
That's how I initially took it, and I also thought like, well, maybe like Wanda is actually like unable to like let go of her control on everybody, and maybe she's trying to, you know, let this go, but she's unable to. Whether that be because, you know, she wants to kind of be in this like perfect place where she's with Vision and the boys, or maybe some kind of outside source is keeping her from letting go of all these people in control, and maybe she wants to, but there's nothing she can do about it.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. Like, subconscious, like she's not aware that there might be something else keeping her doing it. Yeah. Okay.
And then so Wanda goes to Agnes's, and she's like sitting in her living room, and Agnes is in the next room like making tea, and she notices that like there's like the sandwiches and stuff, and like she remembers that the boys were over there, and she's like, where's the kids? And Agnes is like, oh, they're probably just like, you know, hanging out in the basement, no big deal. And so Wanda starts to head down to the basement, and then when you go down to the basement, you see kind of like this passageway, and it's like covered in vines, and like the interior kind of area changes from like, you know, like a house to like brick stones and stuff, and kind of castle like.
Right. Yeah.
And you come to this like little area where there's like books and stuff, and it looks like a wizard's tower kind of area. And then there's a specific like cut to a book, and I'm pretty sure that could be the Darkhold, which is like the Marvel's universe like Necronomicon.
Okay. I definitely got Necronomicon vibes, but no idea what the Darkhold is. But good to know.
Yeah, it's just like a book of dark power is what it is.
Dope.
Yeah, so I thought that was like a really cool like Easter egg, and I wonder if they're going to actually do anything with that. Maybe they will, because they made like a decisive cut to just show the book.
Yeah, and again, we're on episode 7 out of, what is it?
9.
9 episodes total. So with the next 2 episodes, like you said, with that deliberate cut to it, as then yeah, it's probably definitely going to come up.
And then like Wanda's just like flabbergasted at what she's seeing right now, and then you see Agnes come out, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm actually Agatha Harkness," and who's like basically like a Fantastic Four villain. Like she babysits like Reed and Sue's kids and stuff, and she's behind all the weird stuff that we were wondering about all along. She's like, "Yeah, it was me," and then like it cuts to like a little clip. It's like it was Agatha all along, and like it's showing all the shit that she's doing all season, like Herb sawing through the wall, and Pietro showing up at Wanda's crib, and there's a theory that Vito had from the Halloween episode when Vision approaches her and he tries to do the mind trick on her. Vito thought that she was possibly just acting a part, and that she wasn't actually affected by what Vision was doing, and she was just trying to play it up. Like, oh yeah, I was not connecting to whatever, you know, like Windows 95, like connection issue sounds or whatever, dial-up noise.
Right.
and then it also reveals that Agatha was the one who was interviewing Wanda at the beginning of the episode, and was basically just gaslighting her. It's like, so you think you deserve, what you're doing?
Right.
And then she hits us with the most gut punch, like the biggest gut punch of the series. She even killed Sparky.
Hot take, deserved it.
Wow. And then like after that like kind of big reveal, like the episode cuts off, and I think I was like playing on my phone or something, and then the mid-credits scene popped up, and it's the first one in the series as far as like any kind of after like credit scene, and it's basically Monica shows up to Agatha's house, and she's opened the door to the basement and like on the side of the house, and it's like you see the vines and the stonework and stuff on the inside going down in the basement, and then you see Pietro kind of like walk up behind her, and he's like, "Yeah, Snooper's gonna snoop." Yeah, just cut. And I'm curious because like at this point, like you've seen like Pietro showing up as something to do with Agatha Harkness, and I'm curious if it's like Nick Scratch, who which is Agatha's son in the comics, and well, the first time we see or see a reference to Scratch, it's the bunny, and from episode 2, I believe, when they're doing the magic show. And I wonder if it's like Agatha's like kind of Pietro could also just be an illusion, but I wonder if it's something to do with like maybe Agatha is changing like Nick Scratch's shape or something, like whether from like the bunny to Pietro to something else, and using it kind of like him like a familiar.
So I think what she did is took his dead corpse, kind of like how Wanda took Vision's dead corpse, and because like what was it? Was that? I think it was episode 5, maybe. Yeah, I think it was episode 5 or 4, where it shows that she for a moment saw Vision's real dead body, but animated. But then you see the same thing in episode 6 with Pietro, where it shows his dead corpse for a second. So I'm wondering if it's actually the corpse just being controlled by Agatha.
Yes. I mean,
I feel like maybe that's, but it also could just be like, again, an illusion of that just to traumatize her or some shit, and that could be like Agatha all doing that. And then, like you said, it could just be just reshaping her son or something like that.
Yeah.
To torment.
So it's interesting that you brought up like it could just be Agatha stealing his corpse, because like I believe the Darkhold has something to do with like the Marvel Zombies run. So maybe it is maybe Agatha's using the Darkhold to like reanimate Pietro's corpse. As where like Wanda has reality shaping, like powers to start with, and maybe Agatha doesn't quite have that, so she needs the Darkhold to do that. And so Wanda just like can just naturally do that, as where Agatha needed, some help.
Right. I'm on point. Don't know it, but I'm on point.
And then also something that happened in the before it cuts to the credits and before the ending of the episode, something that happened before like it cuts to the credits is Agatha kind of hits Wanda with like some of her purple puffy magic or whatever, and then you kind of see like wisps of it around her head. And I wonder if we're going to see that the repercussions of that in the next episode, or possibly both episodes, where Wanda's being controlled by Agnes. And there's a bunch of weird stuff, and it's going to be like Detective Vision, trying to stop what's going down.
Right. And so I'm wondering how similar their powers are, because like Wanda got her power, well, at least in the MCU anyway, got her powers from the Mind Stone, or right?
Experiments from like Hydra, yeah.
Yeah. So, but up until this show, like her powers has been mostly like either hallucination manipulation, but with a bit of some physical manipulation, with throwing like ships and shit around, or crushing Thanos and or whatever. So, but now with the show where she's actually, stretched from that to being able to actually manipulate reality, I wonder if, like, with Agatha in the MCU anyway, her powers is similar, like with hallucinations. Like maybe she's going to manipulate Wanda to like think of like a nightmare, kind of like how Wanda did to Tony back in like Ultron. Like give her hallucinations, but what Agatha can do would be something like reanimating dead or something, and that's like her unique powers. So like there's a shared power, but Agatha has something different that Wanda can't do, but Wanda obviously can do, fucking reality shit that she can.
So something that I was just now thinking of is so like in the previous episodes where like we were getting like blips and stuff that wasn't being sent out to be watched on television, like on those frequencies. And what if it was Agnes causing those blips to happen, as opposed to Wanda feeling like, she's trying to protect her mind? So like you because there's stuff that was happening in those blips, right? That anyways, as we see, like, because it wasn't being broadcasted whenever Wanda sent Monica back through the hex the first time.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So I wonder if the broadcasting is coming from Wanda or if it's coming from Agnes. And then instead of like Wanda trying to kind of save her mind from going through like turmoil, from like trying to protect itself, kind of like whenever she saw like the beekeeper come out of the sewer grate and there's the blip, and it goes back to, and I wonder if that's something to do with Agnes as opposed to Wanda. At the same time, it's like we kind of understand that there was that Wanda was doing things in between the blips.
It's interesting that she's wanting to project her perceived reality. But I could definitely see that Wanda would control those blips as well, because she doesn't want those to be known. Like she does, because like I guess what was it again?
Like she's trying to protect Vision from understanding that there's stuff outside of the hex.
Exactly, because she specifically cuts out her throwing Rambo back into real reality, I guess. And then even their conversation just after that, she cuts that out again to, if somehow it could be played back, like protect that. So it kind of seems more like Wanda specifically was controlling those, probably more so than Agatha. But I could see Agatha also maybe. Yeah, I don't see why Agatha would want to protect that.
Yeah,
it makes more sense that Wanda is controlling that more so.
But also, like, whenever Agatha's like, "Hey, it was me the whole time," it's done like it's its own show, because it's like it was Agatha all along or whatever, and it's like its own show. So it's like, I'm curious if that's just like its own thing, because it's supposed to be similar to like WandaVision or whatever. But
right.
I feel like that it's possibly Agnes who's been, pulling the strings like this whole time, as opposed to Wanda making the blips herself. And maybe we're not being shown everything as well that Agatha's been doing, because it's like, hey, all this weird stuff that was like unexplainable, that she's like, yeah, Pietro showing up, or Herb like trying to cut through the thing, like that was her. But maybe we're not also like, it's an unreliable like narrator type deal, where like Agatha's the new narrator and she's not exactly showing us everything that's going on.
True. Yeah, that's very true. And there's the precedent for that with the previous episode, so that's definitely a possibility. Was like Agatha always in this town, and then Wanda just like perhaps just by happenstance just chose this town that she was in, or was Agatha able to, way before even Wanda taking Vision from the facility, was able to somehow manipulate her into doing it, into setting this up? And because like, I mean, again, like an Endgame, like obviously she was, affected by the loss, but like she also seemed to be in control, and or at least understand that that's just reality. Like she didn't lose it. Whereas in this, she seems like she just lost it. and just like she just wants to go in a cocoon. Just I'm just doing fuck everything else. Like, so
like maybe like she's been being manipulated by
right.
Agatha the whole like yeah. So like
Which, I mean,
post Endgame, she's being manipulated by Agatha, and I'm curious like to see like what her end goal is, or if she's being manipulated by somebody else. Like, because I think Nightmare is supposed to be the bad guy for the Doctor Strange movie, and I'm curious if Nightmare is in league with Agatha and it's like, hey, I need you to go make this happen for Wanda so that we can get her to do what we want. So we're not exactly sure right now what the bigger picture is entirely. All that we know right now is just like Agatha's been possibly just manipulating Wanda, but it's like what's bigger than that is what I'm curious about, and like how this affects like the grand picture and like the MCU, because this is going to lead into Doctor Strange 2.
Also, I gotta plug my channel real quick, BCBW News, to a dying channel of 2 Dark Souls videos, 1 shitty AMV. What up?
Yeah, I'll plug his.
Never come back. Woo!
I'll plug his channel in the description below. You've been great. I've been Wally. This has been Spoilers, bruh, with Zach from BCBW News, and I'll see you, Space Cowboy and or Gal.